A raised bed fed 5 people through a rationing winter for 11 cents in nails. And today you pay $180 for a plastic kit you cannot repair. Your great-grandparents grew a third of their own food on a plot the size of a parking space. And the grocery chains shut the program down the year the war ended to get you back into the aisle. If your family ever put food by for winter and you could not do it today to save your life, sit down, neighbor, because I have got something that belongs to you. In the bed went lettuce, spinach, basil, kale, broccoli, chard, and for tomato vines already showing small red fruit staked upright with those same copper straps. That bed fed his wife, his 3 children, and half his block through a rationing winter. Today, most of us could not tell you what a copper strap is for. And we pay $180 for a raised bed kit we cannot repair. But here is the twist. Every trick Arthur Lang used in that Boston yard is still legal to know. I am Silas Mercer, 7th generation on this ridge. My people settled Mercer Ridge in the 1790s and never left it. And before he passed at 94, he made me swear the old ways would not die with me. This is me keeping my word. Your granddad knew every one of these, friend. Somebody just did not get the chance to pass some down to you. That is what I am here for. Some of what is coming down this list was outlawed outright. Some of it a university quietly confirmed beats the store-bought version you are overpaying for right now. Number 14. They classified that one a public health hazard in 3 states before 2009. And I am not touching it till we are most of the way down. Number 6. Fewer than 200 old-timers in the whole country still do it right. And number 3, the Smithsonian spent 2 years studying it and admitted the extension bulletins from 1938 had it dead correct. Before we count down, tap subscribe. Not for me. Because we are pulling buried knowledge back into daylight and you will want the next one they would rather you did not see. Let us count down from 25. Stop asking what we lost. Start asking who profited when we forgot. Number 25. Raised beds built from salvaged wood and copper pipe straps. Your great-grandfather did not buy a kit. He walked the alley behind the lumber yard on a Saturday and came home with for 1x12s and a fistful of copper pipe hangers a plumber had thrown out. He nailed the boards into a rectangle, screwed the copper straps across every corner as reinforcement, and by Sunday afternoon, he was filling it with black composted horse manure from the milk wagon route. Sears sold a rough 1x12 pine board for 23 cents in 1935. Their whole bed, for boards and a handful of nails, ran him under $1. Today, a factory-raised bed kit cost $180 and is made of extruded plastic that cracks in 2 winters. Washington State University Extension came out in 2011 and said flat, any rot-resistant wood, brick, block, or recycled material works the same. $180 to imitate a scrap wood box. That is not a mistake, friend. That is their whole business model. Number 24, rendered lard as tool oil and handle preservative. She would render leaf fat in a cast iron kettle on a low fire, stirring for hours till the cracklings turned golden and the fat ran clear as spring water. A rag dipped in cooled lard rubbed down the hickory handle of the hole and that handle did not crack for 30 years. Rubbed on the hammerhead, no rust through a wet spring. Then in 1911, Procter & Gamble put Crisco on the shelf and spent 60 years telling you animal fat would kill you. And the hardware store started selling you $8 tool oil in a plastic bottle. Material science today confirms saturated animal fat forms a hydrophobic barrier that stops moisture cold. Same reason it worked in 1935. Same reason it works this afternoon. Number 23. Wood ash sifted onto the garden as lime and potash. March the snow melting, she would sift the fine white ash out of the stove into a galvanized bucket and walk it to the cabbage row, sprinkled it barehanded. 100 pounds of hardwood ash carries 3 to 7 pounds of potash and lime, equal to about 35 pounds of ground limestone. She burned for cords a winter and had every amendment she would ever need for free sitting in the ash pan. University of Vermont Extension put it on paper in 2012. Wood ash is a valuable source of nutrients and raises soil pH. $12 a bag free in the stove. Somebody did the math on that and it was not you. Number 22. Saving seed from open-pollinated tomatoes, beans, and lettuce. Late August, she would pick the 2 heaviest tomatoes off their vine she called mortgage lifter, split them over a mason jar, and let the pulp ferment on the windowsill 3 days till the seed sank clean. Rinsed, dried on newspaper in the shade, folded into envelopes labeled in pencil, tucked in a tin box in the bedroom dresser. Then in 1930 came the Plant Patent Act. Then 1970 the Plant Variety Protection Act. Today's packet at the garden center runs for $1.99. 2 pages Eli's hand-dated spring of '39 laid out fermentation timing to the hour. Seeds Savers Exchange, founded 1975, and the United States Department of Agriculture's germplasm program both say the same thing. Now, on farm saved seed of open-pollinated varieties, adapts to your soil in 3 seasons, and beats the store packet. The corporations do not hate you. They just needed you to buy the seed every spring and you did. First patent break. Here is where it stops being quaint and starts being the reason somebody bought a second house on a lake. Every item so far, the villain sold you back what your grandmother did for free. Number 21, Dense Victory Garden Style Intensive Planting. Arthur Lang's 15 by 25 bed in Boston fed 5 people. And the United States Department of Agriculture estimated in 1943 that more than 20 million victory gardens produced around 9 million tons of vegetables that year. That is about 900 pounds a household off a plot the size of a parking space. Then in 1946, the federal promotion ended overnight. A&P and Safeway had trucks running again and needed you back in the aisle. Cornell Extension and the University of Missouri both publish yield studies today confirming that a 15x25 bed planted intensive produces 400 to 600 pounds of vegetables a season. Same numbers the government printed in 1943. They did not outlaw the bed. They just quit reminding you it existed. Number 20. Kitchen scrap and manure compost layered in the corner. Peels, coffee grounds, spoiled hay, chicken manure, coal-free wood ash, all layered in a wire ring at the back of the lot. Turn twice a winter. Come April, it was black and crumbly and smelled like a forest floor. Cornell's Waste Management Institute confirms properly made compost improves soil structure, water retention, and nutrient supply, and can substitute for a portion of synthetic fertilizer. The Environmental Protection A's 2018 numbers say Americans compost only about 6 million tons of yard waste out of tens of millions generated. The rest goes to the landfill in black plastic bags you paid for. Your peels are worth more than the bag and you are throwing both of them out. Number 19. Companion flowers for pest control. Those small yellow marigolds ringing Arthur's bed were not decoration. Marolds put out a root compound that suppresses root knot nematodes, and Nitoriums pull aphids off the tomatoes onto themselves like a decoy. In the 1950s, the pesticide manufacturers, first the DDT sellers and later the big chemical firms, spent a fortune convincing extension agents that a spray schedule was more professional than a border of flowers. Michigan State University Extension confirmed the Merrill nematode effect on paper decades later. The flower still works. The $18 bottle still costs $18. Not a conspiracy, just how markets work. Number 18. Sunken beds and hand-dug swells catching rain off the roof. Your great-grandmother's garden was not flat. It dipped 2 or 3 inches below the surrounding grass, and a shallow ditch ran from the downspout right into it. A hard summer rain filled that basin and soaked 6 in deep. And she did not touch a hose for a week. Then in some states, Colorado the loudest, you could not legally catch rain off your own roof at any real scale. On the theory, the water belonged to downstream rights holders. The United States Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service publishes swell guides today. University of Arizona Extension teaches the same catchment shapes. The utility bills use $600 a year for water you could catch off your own shingles. Not on you, friend. They're just good at selling it back. Number 17, green nurses. Sowing clover or rye in the fall, digging it under in spring. Every October, he broadcast winter rye or red clover across the empty beds, watered it once, and forgot it till March. The rye held the soil against wind. The clover pulled 40 to 100 pounds of nitrogen an acre out of thin air through the root nodules and put it in the soil. After the war, the Haber-Bosch process made ammonia dirt cheap. DuPont and CF Industries flooded the market with synthetic nitrogen, and by the 1960s, extension bulletins had scrubbed the cover crop pages down to a paragraph. The United States Department of Agriculture Sustainable Agriculture Research Program brought it back in the 1990s, and today they cannot publish cover crop guides fast enough. Nothing new, just the old page uncovered. Confession. First cover crop I ever put in, I was 22 and I broadcast rice so thick that by April I could not dig it under with a shovel. Eli laughed till he cried, and then he took the journal down and pointed at the line I had not read. Half a pound to the 100 square feet. Half a pound, not 2. Horse sense eventually. Number 16. Hand hoe cultivation with a whetstone sharpened edge. A dull hoe pulls weeds. A sharp hoe slices them a 1/4 inch below the crown, faster than walking, and they do not come back. She kept an Arkansas stone in her apron pocket and touched the blade up every 20 minutes. They did not outlaw the whetstone. They quit teaching it in shop class around 1971, and home economics had already stopped teaching the girls. Fewer than 200 old-timers in this country still put an edge on a garden hoe the way Eli put it on his. That is who number 6 is going to be about. Number 15. Interplanting basil with tomatoes. Basil next to the tomato is not a chef's arrangement. The basil's volatiles confuse whiteflies and hornworms hunting by scent. And the shallow basil roots do not compete with the tomato's deep ones. Extension programs at Rutgers and Ohio State have confirmed the confusion effect on hornworm overposition. Not a myth, not folklore. Physics of smell. Second pattern break halfway down. Everything above this line they made unfashionable. Everything below this line they made frightening, complicated, or in some counties technically illegal. Number 14. Home saltpeter beds for garden potassium nitrate. Under a lean tube behind the barn, your great-great-grandmother kept a pile of wood ash, straw, and old manure, kept it damp, and let it work. Nitrifying bacteria in the pile converted ammonia to nitrate. And after 18 months, the top crust could be leached with rainwater to pull off potassium nitrate, one of the finest garden fertilizers ever made and incidentally a controlled substance in a different application. Colonial households did this openly. By the 20th century, federal explosive precursor rules made anything past a small pile technically restricted at scale. Nobody is going to arrest you for a coffee can of ash and manure at the back of the garden. But turn it into a barn-sized bed to sell and the law is watching. I am not your lawyer and I am not telling you to run a saltpeter operation. I am telling you that the small version, one your great-grandmother did to feed a rose bed, was ordinary work, and the record shows it made better fertilizer than anything on the garden center shelf. Category level: know it existed. Number 13. The three sisters interplanting corn, beans, squash in a home bed. Corn tall in the middle. Beans climbing the corn fixing nitrogen. Squash sprawling low, shading the soil and hiding the fruit under prickly leaves the raccoons hate. The United States Department of Agriculture extension bulletins of the 1920s laid it out plain, and by the 1960s it had been scrubbed out of the modern vegetable gardening curriculum because it does not fit a monoculture spray schedule. Cornell's Northeast Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program brought it back on paper in the 2000s. They did not ban the arrangement. They just quit printing the diagram. Number 12. Fermented plant material tea as liquid fertilizer. She would stuff a 5-gallon bucket half full of comfrey leaves or nettles or grass clippings, fill it with rainwater, cover it loosely, and let it stew for 2 weeks till it smelled like the devil. That black stew diluted 10-to-1, fed a tomato bed better than any bottled concentrate. There is no law against a bucket, but city ordinances in the last 20 years have gone after nuisance odors, and homeowners associations write the practice out of the covenants. Extension services at Colorado State and Oregon State both document effective use of plant tea fertilizers. It smells bad because it is working. Number 11. Cold frames and closes from old windows. An old 6-light window laid across for bricks over a bed of lettuce turned January into an extra growing month. A gallon glass jug with the bottom cut off became a clock over a tomato start in April. She stretched a Boston growing season by 10 weeks with glass headed for the dump. A modern polycarbonate cold frame kit runs $300. There is no ban. There is just a construction waste stream and a garden center margin that do not want you crossing. Any extension office in a cold state will teach the cold frame math today. 10 weeks of extra growing free. Number 10. Oyers buried in glazed clay pots for slow-release irrigation. An englazed terracotta pot buried to the neck between for tomato plants filled with water once a week and capped. The porous clay wept moisture out into the root zone 24 hours a day using a fraction of the water a drip line uses. A drip irrigation kit at the big box today runs $90 and needs replacing every 4 years. University of Arizona Extension has published Oyer studies confirming water savings of 50 to 70% versus surface irrigation. Nobody outlawed the pot. They just needed the water meter to keep spinning. Number 9. Chicken tractors moved daily across the garden. A bottomless wire coop for feet by 8 holding for hens moved one length every morning across an unplanted bed. The birds scratched, ate weed seeds and grubs, dropped nitrogen-rich manure exactly where you wanted next month's tomatoes. Backyard chicken bans in cities peaked in the 1950s as suburbs went up and property values became the priority. Many have been walked back the last 20 years, but roughly a third of American municipalities still restrict or ban hens on residential lots. Modern rotational grazing research at the United States Department of Agriculture confirms exactly what the chicken tractor does in miniature. Third patent break, everyone. So far, somebody made it easier for you to buy the replacement than to remember the original. From here down, we are into the four hardest things on the list. Number 8. Hugel culture. Buried log garden mounds. Dig a trench 3 feet deep. Fill it with rotting logs and brush. Cover it with sod upside down, then topsoil, and plant on the mound. The buried wood holds water like a sponge for a decade and slowly feeds nitrogen back as it decays. Permaculture research at Oregon State and multiple homesteading extension programs have published on it since the 1990s. A Hugel culture bed built once feeds itself for 8 to 12 years. A raised bed kit lasts 3. Number 7. Deep mulch of straw, leaves, and grass clippings 6 in thick. She never saw bare soil in her garden after May. 6 in of straw between every row. No weeds germinated because no light reached them. Soil stayed cool and damp all July, and by fall the bottom 2 inches were black compost. A bale of straw runs $7. A roll of landscape fabric runs $40 and lasts 1 season before it tears. The mulch is on the ground where they cannot sell it back to you. Number 6. Grafting cyan wood onto wild rootstock at the kitchen table. Fewer than 200 old-timers in the whole country still cleft graft an heirloom apple cyan onto a wild seedling rootstock properly. Blade held at the exact bevel, cambium to cambium, wrapped with grafting tape, and sealed with beeswax. Every commercial apple you eat is a graft, but the practice used to happen at kitchen tables from Vermont to the Ozarks. Nobody banned the knife. The nursery industry consolidated in the 1960s and 1970s and made it cheaper to buy a 5-year potted tree for $80 than to graft your own for $50. The United States Department of Agriculture's germplasm program preserves cyan wood today and will send you cuttings if you ask. The knife still works. The bevel still holds. Number 5. Root cellars dug into a north bank keeping garden crops without electricity. 50 pounds of potatoes, 30 of carrots in damp sand. Cabbages hung by their roots, apples on slattered shelves, all holding at 38 degrees through February without a wire running to them. A modern basement extra freezer runs $200 a year in electricity. A hole in a north bank runs $0 forever. Nobody outlawed the hole. Suburban subdivisions made lots too small and building codes made the excavation permit expensive, and a generation forgot what a 50-degree redamp room could hold. Number for living fences of hedgerow hawthorn and oge orange. Before barbed wire, a mile of thick hedgerow planted along a property line kept the cattle in, the deer out, and gave the songbirds cover to eat the caterpillars off your beans. Oge orange fence hedges were planted across 1 million acres of the American Midwest in the 1870s and 1880s. Then Joseph Glidden's barbed wire patent in 1874 made the hedge unprofitable, and the fence companies did the rest. The United States Department of Agriculture has published in the last decade on hedgerows as biological pest control and windbreak. The hedge still works, the wire still cost. Number 3. Biointensive double digging. The John Gervon's method with 1930s roots. 2 spade depths turned one on top of the other mixed with compost. 24 in of loose fertile bed yields per square foot 4 to 6 times conventional row cropping. The Smithsonian's Anacostia Archives and the University of California Cooperative Research spent years on the method in the 1980s and confirmed the numbers held up. The 1938 extension bulletins had it laid out already. Your great-grandfather knew before a research institution existed to confirm what he knew. Not lost, just buried under spray schedule. Number 2. Interplanted perennial food plants alongside the annual garden. Rhubarb in the corner, asparagus in a strip along the fence, sorrel and horseradish behind the tool shed, a bed of strawberries. All of them planted once and all of them producing for 20 years with almost no work. A modern grocery bill for one adult share of berries and asparagus and greens runs $600 a year. A perennial strip planted once runs over 20 years, less than $100 total. Nobody outlawed the rhubarb. The grocery just needed you to keep coming back. Number 1, grow to be sovereign, not to be sold to. Number 1 is not a trick. It is the thing every one of the other 24 was pointing at. Your great-grandparents did not garden for a hobby. They gardened because a garden meant the grocer could not set the terms of their supper. The fertilizer company could not set the terms of their soil. The water utility could not set the terms of their rain and the seed company could not set the terms of their next spring. That is not gardening. That is sovereignty. A raised bed built of salvaged wood, held with copper straps, planted with safe seed, fed with your own compost, watered off your own roof, defended by your own marolds, and harvested with a hoe you sharpened yourself, is a small quiet declaration of independence repeated every year. That was Arthur Lang kneeling in the pebbles in South Boston in 1943. Arthur's garden fed his block through the rationing winter. The next spring, the federal Victory Garden program shut down. AMP's trucks rolled back into the neighborhood and by 1948 nobody on that street was growing food anymore. Arthur kept his bed for 30 more years. His neighbors forgot who fed them. I am not your doctor. I am not your county extension agent. Some of what I laid out, the saltpeter beds, the chicken tractors, the rain catchment past a barrel. The law looks at sideways depending on where you live. And I will tell you flat. Check your county before you scale any of it. This isn't prepper paranoia. Nobody's coming for your garden hole. I'm not selling you fear and I'm not selling you anything else either. Just the record. Pick one. Just one. Not 15. One thing this week. Save the seeds off the ripest tomato on your counter and let them ferment 3 days in a jar. Sift the ash out of your fireplace and sprinkle a handful along the fence line. Buy a packet of marigold seed for $2 and ring your tomato bed with it Saturday. Or dig a shallow dish into the ground under your downspout and plant a lettuce row in the middle of it. One thing, do it and something in you settles that hasn't settled in a long time. Tell me down below, did your grandparents do any of these? Which one? The one that gets the most comments is the one I build a whole video on next. A 300-year library closing one old man at a time. Now you're one of the keepers. Your granddad knew every one of these. Somebody just didn't get the chance to pass them down to you. Now they are yours again. Next time we're going into the pantry. There is a $2 jar of powder your great-grandmother kept on the top shelf that put a whole industry out of business twice. Once in 1928 and again in 1961. And the record shows the government wrote 3 separate advisories trying to convince you it wasn't safe, while the university studies said the opposite. Wait till you see who bought the advisories. Subscribe if you haven't. Not for me. Because this record is being uncovered 1 week at a time, and the next one is worth their wait. Keep the old ways. They kept us.